The invitation sat on my kitchen counter for 3 weeks before I opened it. Cream cardstock, gold embossing, Elena's name in elegant script above the words Annual Charitable Summer Gala at the Ashford Estate. The kind of event she'd been planning since March, photographed for society pages and lifestyle magazines. I almost threw it away unopened. I knew what was coming. The phone call arrived 2 days later. Elena's voice had that practiced brightness she used when delivering bad news. "Rachel, darling, about the gala. I need to discuss the guest list with you." "I'm on the invitation," I said flatly. "Well, yes, technically. But Mother and I have been thinking. The gala has become quite prestigious this year. We have senators attending, Fortune 500 CEOs, several ambassadors. The Westbrook family, the Hendersons, the Ashford Foundation Board, all the right people." She paused. "We're trying to maintain a certain caliber of guest. You understand?" I understood perfectly. "You don't want me there." "It's not that we don't want you there, it's just, Rachel, you work for a nonprofit. You live in that tiny apartment in the city. Your wardrobe is practical but not exactly gala appropriate. We can't have you standing next to Governor Morrison in a department store dress making small talk about whatever it is you do with refugee programs." "Humanitarian aid coordination," I said quietly. "Exactly. It's wonderful work, truly, but it's not the kind of thing that impresses at events like this. Mother worries you'll feel out of place around all these successful people. We're doing this for your own good." "For my own good." The same excuse they'd used for 5 years. Not invited to Elena's engagement party because, mostly influential people from David's law firm. Excluded from our brother Christopher's wedding reception because, the venue has limited capacity and we prioritized his professional network. Asked to skip Mother's charity luncheon because, the donor class expects a certain environment. Each time they positioned it as protection. As if being excluded from my own family's events was somehow shielding me from embarrassment rather than causing it. "I see," I said. "I knew you'd understand. We'll do lunch next month, just the two of us. Somewhere casual where you'll be comfortable." After she hung up, I sat in my apartment, the tiny one-bedroom in Manhattan that I barely slept in because I spent most of my time either at UN headquarters or traveling to crisis zones. I looked at the invitation at my name printed there like a formality they'd felt obligated to extend before taking it back. They had no idea what I actually did. They thought I worked for some small nonprofit, probably imagined me filing paperwork in a cramped office, struggling to make ends meet. They'd stopped asking about my career 3 years ago when Elena's legal career took off and Christopher made partner at his investment firm. I'd become the disappointing sister, the one who'd chosen purpose over profit, the family member they loved but didn't respect. What they didn't know was that my non-profit work was a position as Senior Humanitarian Affairs Coordinator for the United Nations. That I reported directly to the Undersecretary General. That I'd spent the last 18 months negotiating humanitarian access in conflict zones, coordinating relief efforts for millions of displaced people, and advising the Security Council on crisis response. Last month, I'd been appointed Special Envoy for the Global Refugee Summit, a position that made me one of the youngest senior-level UN officials in recent history. The appointment came with a security detail, a diplomatic passport and direct access to world leaders. The summit was scheduled for the same weekend as Elena's gala. I'd been planning to decline anyway, had already arranged my schedule around the 3-day conference where I'd be delivering the opening address to representatives from 193 nations. But being explicitly uninvited, being told I wasn't elite enough for my own sister's party, left a different taste. The week before the gala, Elena posted constantly on social media. Photos of the venue being decorated, previews of the menu, carefully curated shots emphasizing the exclusivity, the prestige, the caliber of attendees. Not a single mention of family. Not one photo of me, though she posted throwback pictures of her and Christopher from childhood, carefully cropped to exclude their younger sister. Mother called on Thursday. "Rachel, Elena mentioned you understood about the gala. I'm so glad you're being mature about this. These events are important for maintaining our family's social position. You know we love you, but your career path has been unconventional. We can't have you representing the family at high-profile events when you're not in a position that commands respect." "I understand perfectly," I said. "Wonderful. Perhaps next year when you've found something more established." I hung up. Saturday arrived bright and clear. I dressed in a navy suit, conservative, professional, appropriate for addressing the United Nations General Assembly. My security detail arrived at noon, 2 UN protection officers who would stay with me throughout the summit. Ms. Ashford, the lead officer said, will transport you to the UN building at 5. The broadcast begins at 7, but you're scheduled for hair and makeup at 5:30. Actually, I said, checking my watch, I need to make a stop first. My family's hosting an event in Greenwich. It won't take long. He exchanged a glance with his partner. Ma'am, we weren't briefed on any additional stops. Consider it a brief personal matter. We'll still make the broadcast on time. The drive to Greenwich took 40 minutes. The UN vehicle, a black SUV with diplomatic plates, drew stairs as we pulled up to the Ashford estate. The gala was already underway, the circular driveway packed with luxury cars, valets in white jackets directing traffic. The entrance was flanked by photographers capturing arrivals. I walked past them toward the doors where Elena and Mother stood greeting guests. They were both in designer gowns, jewelry glittering, smiles fixed in place for the society page cameras. Elena saw me first. Her smile faltered. Rachel, what are you doing here? I thought we discussed. We did discuss it. You told me I wasn't a lead enough for your guest list. Kept my voice level. I just wanted to drop something off before my evening commitment. Mother's eyes widened in horror. Rachel, you can't be here. The guests. Rachel Ashford? A voice behind me. I turned to find Senator Morrison himself, champagne flute in hand, his expression curious. I thought that was you. Are you attending the gala? Actually, Senator, I'm on my way to the UN for the Global Refugee Summit broadcast. His face lit up. Of course. You're the special envoy. My God, I should have made the connection. Ashford. You're Elena's sister. He turned to Elena, whose face had gone pale. You never mentioned your sister was the UN special envoy. That's extraordinary. The work you've been doing in Syria alone. I'm sorry, Elena interrupted. There must be some mistake. Rachel works for a non-profit. She works for the United Nations, Senator Morrison corrected. Senior Humanitarian Affairs Coordinator, recently appointed Special Envoy. Her briefing to the Security Council last month was masterful. My colleagues haven't stopped talking about it. Mother's champagne glass trembled in her hand. Rachel, what is he talking about? My job, I said simply. The one you stopped asking about 3 years ago. The one you assumed was some low-level non-profit position because it didn't come with a Wall Street salary. A crowd was gathering. Other guests recognizing the senator, drifting over to hear the conversation. I saw Christopher across the terrace, his expression confused. You work for the UN? Elena's voice had gone shrill. Since when? Since 5 years ago. I've been coordinating humanitarian relief operations, negotiating with governments for refugee access, advising on international crisis response. Last month I was appointed Special Envoy for the Global Summit, the youngest person to hold that position in UN history. The summit that's being broadcast tonight? This from David, Elena's husband. The one that every major network is covering? That one, I confirmed. I'm delivering the opening address in approximately 2 hours, which is why I can't stay. I handed Elena an envelope. Inside was a printed copy of my official UN biography, credentials, appointments, achievements. And a note, for your records since you never asked. Senator Morrison was already pulling out his phone. This is remarkable. The entire diplomatic community will be watching tonight. Rachel does important work. Mother interrupted desperately, trying to salvage the situation. We're so proud of her. We always have been. That's why you didn't invite me to the gala? I asked softly. Because you're so proud? That's why you told me I wasn't elite enough to be seen with your prestigious guests. The crowd had grown larger. Conversations stopping. People recognizing something significant was unfolding. Elena's face cycled through shock and embarrassment. That's not, you misunderstood. I have a recording of our phone conversation, I said, where you explicitly said I work for a non-profit, live in a tiny apartment, and couldn't be trusted to make appropriate small talk with Governor Morrison because of my department store wardrobe and my work with refugee programs. Would you like me to play it? The silence was absolute. You did what? Christopher had pushed through the crowd, his face darkening. Elena, you told Rachel she couldn't come to our family's gala? It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, I said. It's been like that for 5 years. Every event, every family gathering that might include anyone important, I've been excluded. Not invited to your engagement party. Not welcome at Christopher's wedding reception. Asked to skip Mother's charity luncheon because I might embarrass the family in front of donors. Mother's face had gone from pale to crimson. Around us I saw phones coming out, people recording, whispering. Senator Morrison looked appalled. You excluded a UN special envoy from family events because you thought she wasn't successful enough? We didn't know, Mother started. You didn't ask, I corrected. There's a significant difference. You decided who I was 5 years ago and never bothered to check if that assumption was accurate. I tried to tell you about my career. You cut me off to discuss Elena's cases and Christopher's investments. Eventually I stopped trying. My phone buzzed. Sarah, my assistant. Car waiting. You need to leave now to make the broadcast. I have to go, I said. The UN doesn't wait even for family drama. Rachel, wait. Elena grabbed my arm. You can't just leave. We need to talk about this. Why? So you can explain how excluding me was for my own good? So you can retroactively claim pride in achievements you actively avoided acknowledging. I pulled my arm free. I'm done being the embarrassing sister you hide from your prestigious friends. But the summit broadcast, Mother's voice cracked. Everyone will see. Everyone will see exactly who I am. A UN special envoy addressing world leaders about humanitarian crisis. Not the failure you've been pretending I am to make yourselves feel superior. Senator Morrison stepped forward. Ms. Ashford, for what it's worth, your family should be extraordinarily proud. The work you're doing matters more than anything happening at this gala. Thank you, Senator. I looked at Elena one last time. Enjoy your exclusive evening with your elite guests. I'll be addressing 193 nations about saving lives. Try not to crop me out of those photos. The Global Refugee Summit broadcast began at 7 p.m. sharp. I stood at the podium in the UN General Assembly Hall, the iconic green marble and curved walls behind me, delegates from every nation watching and millions more watching from home. Distinguished delegates, excellencies, colleagues, I began, my voice steady. We gather tonight to address one of the greatest humanitarian crises of our time. 80 million people displaced worldwide. Families torn apart by conflict, children growing up in refugee camps, entire generations losing access to education, healthcare, and hope. The cameras panned across the assembly, world leaders, ambassadors, humanitarian organizations. This was real power, real prestige, real impact. Back in Greenwich, I knew Elena's gala was continuing. I knew guests were streaming the broadcast on their phones, showing each other, whispering. I knew my family was watching their carefully curated evening implode as everyone realized the sister they deemed not elite enough was addressing the United Nations on live international television. My speech lasted 40 minutes. I presented data on displacement patterns, proposed frameworks for international cooperation, called for increased funding and political will. When I finished, the assembly rose in standing ovation. Afterward, in the private reception room, I was surrounded by ambassadors, foreign ministers, humanitarian organizations. The president of the General Assembly pulled me aside. Ms. Ashford, that was extraordinary. The delegates are energized. Several nations have already indicated willingness to increase their commitments. My phone had been buzzing continuously. I finally checked it during a break. 53 missed calls from family members. Dozens of texts. Elena, Rachel, everyone is asking about you. They saw the broadcast. Why didn't you tell us? Mother. Darling, we had no idea you were so important. We need to talk. Christopher, I'm watching the broadcast. This is incredible. Why did we not know? I deleted them all and returned to the reception, where the foreign minister of Norway was waiting to discuss expanding humanitarian operations. The fallout was immediate and comprehensive. Society page photos from Elena's gala were overshadowed by screenshots of my UN address. Social media exploded with the story. Prestigious family excludes sister from gala. Sister turns out to be UN special envoy addressing the world the same evening. The headlines wrote themselves. UN envoy too low level, for sister's party delivers global address. And family deems humanitarian coordinator, not elite enough, for summer gala. Elena's reputation in social circles collapsed overnight. The same exclusive friends who'd attended her gala were now questioning her judgment. How do you exclude a UN special envoy from your family event? How do you not know your own sister works at that level? Christopher's investment firm received calls from clients asking uncomfortable questions. Several major accounts requested reassignment to other partners. They didn't want someone managing their money who couldn't recognize achievement in his own family. Mother's Charitable Foundation lost 3 board members and multiple major donors who couldn't reconcile her humanitarian mission with excluding her humanitarian daughter. The senator gave an interview. I was appalled to discover Ms. Ashford had been excluded from her own family's event because they deemed her career insufficiently prestigious. She's doing more important work than anyone at that gala, myself included. 2 weeks after the summit, I received a formal letter from my family. Not an email, not a text, formal stationery delivered by courier. Rachel, we were wrong. Spectacularly, unforgivably wrong. We made assumptions about your life and never bothered to verify them. We prioritized superficial markers of success over actual achievement. We excluded you from events that should have celebrated you. We failed you as family. We have no excuse and no expectation of forgiveness. We simply wanted you to know that we understand what we've lost. The right to be part of your life, the privilege of celebrating your accomplishments, the opportunity to know the remarkable person you've become. We are sorry. I read it once and filed it away. 3 months later, I was promoted to Assistant Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs. The ceremony was attended by world leaders, fellow UN officials and humanitarian organizations I'd worked with across the globe. My family sent flowers with a card. We should have been there from the beginning. We're devastated that we weren't. I donated the flowers to a refugee services center and threw away the card. That evening, at the celebratory dinner hosted by the Secretary General, I was surrounded by people who'd watched me work, who'd seen my dedication, who'd valued my contributions before any title made it official. To Rachel, the Undersecretary General raised his glass, who never needed us to tell her she was elite. She was too busy making the world better to care about our recognition. Everyone drank to that. My phone buzzed with another message from Elena. I didn't open it. Some exclusions are permanent. Some families lose the right to your presence by spending years proving they never valued it. They deemed me not elite enough for their summer gala. I'd been addressing the world instead.